So guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. So guys, I was going to do a live stream, which I'll probably do tomorrow. But unfortunately, because of the Leicester game, and it was exciting, it's very important, and Leicester managed to win, I didn't do the live stream. But, you know, tomorrow, hopefully, depending if I get the time, because I am busy tomorrow, but hopefully I'll try to get the live stream in tomorrow. But yeah, I want to do a quick video. Joe Saunders has vowed to come back after you know, his loss, his TKO loss against Canelo Alvarez, him getting hit with an uppercut, which we now know broke his eye socket in 3 different places. A very rare fracture. They call it a quadruple fracture, I think, and it smashed his eye socket in 3 different places, which is obviously we wish Billy Joe all the best, and hopefully he can get back to, you know, his best. And hopefully that eye can be mended, and he has said that he will be back. So from that, I assume that he will come back and fight again. Obviously, you have to worry after suffering such an eye injury. I know he said the operation went successful, but you have to think that, is he going to be the same? Because we know fighters that have suffered these injuries before. Kell Brook. And he was never really the same fighter. That eye always gave him trouble. We know in the next fight when he fought Spence, the eye socket went again, although it was the other eye. Nevertheless, I think that area becomes weak once it's broken. So we have to wait and see. You know, everyone's different. Everybody's body's different. Everybody's body mends differently. So we just don't know how Billy Joe's gonna come back from it. How his eye is gonna be. Because it seems like a very serious fracture from what they are reporting anyway. So yeah, hopefully Billy Joe can come back. There are some big fights out there for him. There's some definitely great matches. He didn't disgrace himself in that loss. You know, he was competitive in the loss. Even though he took a loss, he was competitive, and he was fighting the best in the world. And there's no shame losing to Canelo. You know, Canelo's become a bit like Mayweather, where there's no shame losing to him. You know, he's one of the best. So there's no shame in Billy Joe coming up second best against the best in the world. And you know, like I said, I've had it 5-3 at the time of the stoppage. So there's no shame in that. You know, he was very competitive in the fight. He did really well. He did really well. He just came up against a fighter who right now is better than everybody, and I believe would beat anyone from 160 to 175. So, you know, he didn't shame himself at all. You know, he did well. He did as well as he could. So I believe Billy Joe has got a future, if depending on how his eye heals up. I believe he's definitely got a future, and he can definitely become world champion again. But it all comes down to like I said, how he is physically, how that eye is, because obviously that eye could be a problem going forward. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully it's not. But there are big fights out there at 160. I don't think there's big fights out there for him at 168. I think he tried to unify at 168. I don't think he was a natural 168 anyway. I don't think he was a 168 pounder. I think his best weight is at 160. And I think that's where he should be fighting, at 160. I think 160 is the perfect weight for Billy Joe Saunders. I think that would be better suited to him. I think his type of style, not being a big puncher. He's not even a big puncher at middleweight. So he's definitely not going to be a big puncher at super middleweight. And then when you find a guy like Canelo who's got a granite chin, I just think the other matchups I don't think they're good for him. Like even Caleb Plant might be a hard matchup for him, because those guys are exactly the same as Saunders. In like Caleb Plant's got fast hands, fast feet. He likes to be slick as well. He's that type of fighter, hasn't got a lot of power. So for me, Plant is that type of fighter as well, but they're physically bigger. They're natural 168s. Whereas Billy Joe Saunders, I believe at 160 is a good size 160. So him going back down to 160, I believe there's fights like Charlo, Andrade, Golovkin. There's obviously Golovkin there, Murata. I think the fight that definitely makes sense is the Eubank fight. I think Eubank is a fight that I think would blow the socks. I think with the rivalry, the fact that these guys, I think this rivalry is like Khan Brook, Froch Groves. But I think this is a proper rivalry. This is I think Khan Brook was a lot more deeper because it went back to the amateur days and stuff. Whereas this one obviously started from when they fought as pros. But nevertheless, the rivalry now has become very bitter. And you'd have to say the way they act towards one another, it's even probably worse than Khan Brook. So I actually think I actually think that this would be a massive fight, and the fact that it'd be a big fight. If one of them can win a world title, I think Eubank, if he can fight Murata and win a world title, that makes the fight even bigger. But I think regardless of the belt, I still think the fight would sell and it'd be massive. I think it could definitely sell out a football stadium. When I'm talking 30, 40,000, easy. I reckon the way these two would hype it, the back and forth, and it's genuine, in my opinion, genuine needle. And when you see Eubank reacting the way he did, he generally, I don't believe, likes Billy Joe, and I think Billy Joe genuinely doesn't like Eubank. And I think after what happened and the way Eubank mocked Billy Joe, I think the rivalry is going to become even bitter, because I didn't like the fact that Eubank did what he did. But if Conor Ben made a perfect point that if Eubank had lost, right, would Billy Joe have done the same? Possibly. Who knows? Who knows? Because they generally don't like one another. I remember Eubank putting on the bet saying Eubank, he said, oh, well, if Canelo loses, if Canelo, I'm putting 10,000 on that Canelo's going to knock Billy Joe out. But then Billy Joe offered Marcus Morrison 10,000 if he beats Eubank. So there's clearly a rivalry there. There's clearly don't like one another. And that's what makes this fight big. Both guys now, Billy Joe's just had a loss against one of the best out there. Eubank's, his career's kind of been, he's not really got the big fights. And he got a big fight against Groves, and that didn't work out for him. You've got De Gale, which was hyped up to a big fight, but De Gale was a shell of himself. So really, Eubank needs this. Eubank needs the Saunders fight. It's a massive fight. I think Saunders is going to be out for a long time. And listen, there are reports that he may never fight again. You just don't know. We just don't know. He's come out and said it looks like he will fight again and he will come back. But it just depends what desire and hunger, because Saunders never came across the kind of guy that loved the sport, where he was dedicated and, like a Canelo. He never came across that type of guy. But, who knows? Maybe this may change his view. This may get him to be more dedicated. I don't know. It just depends. He's been a two-weight world champion. He's fought the best. He came up short against Canelo, and there's no shame in that. So he may say, you know what, I've done enough. Time for me to off. But the way the statement didn't reflect that. The statement reflected that he is going to come back and fight. He wants to come back, and I don't think any fighter, and as proud as Billy Joe is, I don't think he would want to go out on a loss. And I think he knows there's still big fights like Eubank out there. I think it would be a damn shame if neither of these guys fought again, because let's be honest, both of them, although some people say that Eubank hasn't improved since Billy Joe, yeah, he has. He's got better. He's definitely got better, and I actually think this fight now, with Billy Joe suffering the injury, we don't know how that's going to affect him. I actually think this could be a massive fight. Now, I don't know whether they'll do it next, because, like I said, I don't think Billy Joe's going to fight for a very long time. Maybe be a year and a half before he comes back. Because you need that eye to heal. Even though Kell Brook came back quite quick, because he fought Gennady in September, and then he fought Errol Spence in May. So, Brook came back quite quick, which may again been down to his downfall, because I think he wanted the Khan fight, but that didn't work out. So then he jumped on. Then he obviously had to fight Errol Spence, because Errol Spence was a mandatory, which in the end, I think if they could have delayed that a couple of more months, I don't think it would have made much of a difference, possibly, because, like I said, I think that if that area is weak, it's weak. But I think Saunders should take his time out, and then there's a fight there with him and Eubank where he could make easy couple million, easy. Because, like I said, that would be a pay-per-view fight in the UK. That would sell out a stadium, so they do great on the gate. Pay-per-view, I think they'll do great numbers, especially with a good undercard, right? And if one of them can win, if Eubank can win a world title in the meantime, you're talking about a humongous fight. A huge fight. So listen, it's a fight that I would like to see. It's a big fight, even if there's no titles on the line, and neither of them win a title. If not, some people don't think Billy Joe's going to win a world title now. Some people will say that, well, Eubank will never win a world title. But even without the world titles on the line, that's a big fight, because both of them have kind of, especially Saunders now with fighting Canelo, his profile has risen massively. And Eubank's already got a biggish name because of his, who his father was, and he himself has now fought a couple of guys at world level. You know, he's fought Arthur Abraham, De Gale. Although these guys were past their best, he still fought some decent opposition now. You know, he fought George Groves in a World Boxing Super Series, and again, he lost, but again, he did well in the fight. He was outclassed a little, but he still didn't disgrace himself. He did really well in the fight. At certain points, he had, especially towards the end, George, we know his shoulder popped out, but he could have won. He could have easily nicked it right at the end, even though it would have been fortunate, but he could have nicked it. So like I said, I think there's fights out there for both guys, but I think the fight that makes sense for both is each other, because like I said, I think the money that they would make with each other, they can't make with anyone else, even if there was a world title on the line. Apart from if Eubank gets a Canelo, I don't think Eubank could make as much money fighting anyone else as fighting each other. And especially Eubank, if you're Eubank and you're looking at it and you're thinking, the guy's a 2-weight world champion. He's a good fighter. He's been injured. He's maybe a bit vulnerable now. So maybe Eubank could push for that. I don't know whether they're let's see. I don't know whether Billy Joe will entertain it. Maybe. I think he will. Because I think, like I said, although Billy Joe might want to become a world champion again, I think from now till if he's gonna fight again, from now till the end of his career, I do think it's time for him to become more of a businessman, in the sense that it's about the money fights. It's about making that dough. And I think the Eubank fight, from a business sense, is a perfect fight. And also, it's against a guy that really styles-wise, you'd have to say that Billy Joe Saunders stylistically is all wrong for Eubank. Eubank doesn't like that type of style, a guy that boxes and moves, So that's a tough fight for Eubank anyway, stylistically. But again, it makes it interesting, because with Billy Joe suffering the injury that he suffered, how's he going to come back? I don't think, I would be very surprised if they make that fight next. But I do think I do think Eubank will fight, and then he'll probably go into a meaningful fight. Hopefully, if he can win that meaningful fight, or if it's for a world title, then it makes the fight even bigger. But I think Billy Joe will definitely not jump in straight into a Eubank fight. I do think that he'd probably want to it'd probably want to have a warm-up fight, maybe one, maybe two, before he jumps into a big fight with someone like a Eubank. But yeah, I'm interested. I'm intrigued to see what Billy Joe coming back. I hope he doesn't retire. I like Billy Joe. I think he's very exciting. I think he's a character. Although I don't always like some of the things that he does outside, I think he's a character, and I think he's good for boxing. He's good for British boxing. And I think him and Eubank have definitely got a fight there which they can put on that would entertain the British fans and get the British fans excited. And like I said, it could sell out a stadium. It could sell out a stadium, and it could do well on pay-per-view. It's a big fight. So yeah, I would be interested. But what do you guys make of Billy Joe saying he vows to come back? Do you think he can become world champion again? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know what you think, guys. And who do you think he should fight next? Do you think he should fight Eubank? Leave your thoughts. And guys, remember to please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.